Taro had always loved exploring the unknown. Even as a child, he would wander through the forests near his home, imagining ancient cities and hidden treasures waiting to be found. Now, years later, he had become an explorer for the New Earth Expedition, a group dedicated to discovering abandoned planets and forgotten civilizations. This time, his mission led him to a planet far from the usual trade routes, a place covered in dense forests and misty valleys. From his ship, he had seen a structure that did not belong, a massive silhouette rising through the treetops. It was a cathedral, forgotten by time. As Taro landed near the forest's edge, his heart raced with excitement. He had seen old ruins before, but nothing like this. The cathedral towered over the surrounding trees, its stone walls covered in ivy, moss, and cracks that told of centuries without care. The large wooden doors were weathered, some broken, and the windows, once filled with glass, now held only shadows and the soft light of the fading sun. Taro could feel the energy of the place, as if it were alive with stories waiting to be told. He carefully stepped through the forest, branches scratching at his jacket, leaves rustling underfoot. Every step brought him closer to the cathedral's grand entrance. As he pushed open one of the heavy doors, a groan echoed through the empty halls, sending shivers down his spine. The interior was enormous, with tall columns stretching toward a ceiling lost in darkness. Dust danced in the sunlight streaming through cracks in the walls, and faint carvings on the floor told of a long-lost people who had built this place with care and devotion. Taro's eyes widened as he walked deeper inside. He traced his fingers along the carvings on the walls, wondering what secrets they held. Suddenly, he heard a soft voice from behind a collapsed pillar. "You shouldn't be here alone," the voice said. Taro turned quickly to see a young woman stepping out from the shadows. She had a calm but curious look, holding a small tablet covered in notes. "I could say the same to you," Taro replied, smiling. "I'm Taro. I'm exploring this place." "Who are you?" "I'm Myra," she said. "I study ancient human history. I didn't expect anyone else to come here. This cathedral has been forgotten for a long time." Her eyes sparkled with curiosity and intelligence, and Taro felt an unexpected warmth in her presence. They began walking through the cathedral together, talking about its size, the carvings, and the stories they could imagine. Myra explained how the building might have been a place for learning and gatherings, a center where humans once celebrated knowledge and peace. Taro shared his ideas about who might have built it and why it had been left to time. Their conversation flowed easily, laughter mixing with moments of awe as they explored the ruins. As they reached a large hall with a broken ceiling, sunlight poured in, creating patterns on the dusty floor. Taro paused, looking at the light falling on Myra's face. For a brief moment, everything else disappeared: the cathedral, the forest outside, the years of history, and all he noticed was her. Myra smiled softly, noticing his gaze, and felt a flutter in her chest. Neither spoke, but in that silence, a connection formed, fragile but real. They discovered small rooms filled with broken furniture and shelves that once held scrolls. Myra carefully examined the carvings on one wall, showing Taro how they told a story of unity and hope. Taro marveled at her knowledge, impressed by how easily she could make sense of things he barely understood. Together, they pieced together fragments of the past, imagining the lives of those who had built the cathedral and walked its halls. As the sun dipped lower, shadows grew longer, and the cathedral felt both grand and mysterious. Taro looked at Myra and realized that discovering this place was only part of the adventure. Meeting her had made it even more special. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he felt certain of one thing: with Myra by his side, even a forgotten cathedral could feel alive again. As they finally stepped outside, the wind rustling the ivy around them, Taro smiled and said, "We should come back tomorrow. There's still so much to see." Myra nodded, her eyes reflecting the golden light of the sunset. "Yes. This place has many stories left to tell, and maybe we can uncover them together." The two of them walked back toward the forest's edge, leaving the cathedral standing silently behind them, holding its secrets for the night. But both knew that their journey had only just begun, and that the forgotten cathedral had already brought something new into their lives: curiosity, courage, and a bond that neither time nor fire could easily destroy. The next morning, Taro woke to the soft hum of the wind through the trees. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he prepared for another day at the forgotten cathedral. Yesterday's discoveries had been amazing, but he knew there was more to uncover. As he walked through the forest, the sunlight pierced the mist, creating small beams that danced across the path. He could hardly wait to see Myra again. Myra was already there when he arrived, standing near the edge of the forest, sketchbook in hand. She looked up and smiled, a warmth that made Taro's heart skip a beat. "Good morning, Taro," she said. "I brought some notes from the murals we saw yesterday. I think they might tell more about the people who built this cathedral." "Good morning, Myra," Taro replied, smiling. "I'm ready to explore. There's something about this place that feels alive." Together, they entered the cathedral. Morning light streamed through the cracks and broken windows, casting long shadows on the stone floor. Dust hung in the air like tiny stars, and the sound of their footsteps echoed through the grand halls. They moved carefully, examining walls, floors, and ceilings, noting carvings that told stories of unity, festivals, and celebrations of life. As they walked, Myra shared her knowledge. "Look here," she said, pointing to a series of symbols etched into the stone. "These seem to represent people coming together. It's like a story of cooperation between different groups." Taro leaned closer, impressed by her insight. "It's incredible how much history is hidden in these walls. I never thought I'd find something like this." Hours passed as they explored, and small accidents added both humor and closeness to their day. Taro stumbled over a fallen beam, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Myra laughed softly, helping him to his feet. Later, she almost tripped on loose stones, and Taro caught her hand before she fell. Each moment of shared laughter and support made their bond grow stronger, though neither admitted it out loud. At midday, they reached a large hall with a high ceiling. Sunlight poured through gaps above, creating golden patterns on the floor. The room was vast, empty, and quiet, but it carried a strange beauty. Taro walked to the center, arms outstretched as if embracing the cathedral itself. Myra joined him, holding her sketchbook. "This place is amazing," Taro said softly. "I can almost imagine people here hundreds of years ago, children running, music playing, people celebrating together." Myra nodded, her eyes shining. "Yes. It's hard to believe it has been abandoned for so long. But it feels like it's waiting for someone to remember it." They spent the afternoon in a smaller chamber near the back of the cathedral. The room contained old furniture, broken shelves, and what remained of ancient scrolls. Myra carefully examined a few of the scrolls, translating faded words and symbols. Taro watched her work, admiring the way she moved with focus and care. In a quiet moment, he found himself wishing he could stay in this room with her forever, exploring and discovering side by side. When the light outside began to dim, Taro suggested, "Let's rest for a while. The cathedral deserves to be seen, but we need energy to keep exploring. Myra agreed, and they sat on a low stone bench. Taro noticed the warmth of her presence and the gentle way she spoke. For a while, they sat in silence, listening to the faint sounds of the forest outside and the echoes inside the cathedral. In that quiet, their connection felt stronger, deeper. There was no need for words to explain it, an unspoken understanding passed between them. Before leaving, Taro found an old lantern in a corner and dusted it off. "We can use this tomorrow," he said. "It might help us see places that sunlight can't reach." Myra smiled. "Good idea. I think there's still a lot we haven't discovered. And I want to see it all with you." As they walked back through the forest, the cathedral standing silently behind them, Taro felt a sense of purpose. This place was more than ruins, it was a bridge between the past and the present, and perhaps even a bridge between two hearts. Myra's presence made the cathedral feel alive, full of hope and possibilities. Taro knew that together, they could face whatever mysteries awaited. That night, Taro lay under the stars, thinking about Myra and the cathedral. He realized that the day had not only brought him closer to history but also closer to someone special. And in the heart of the forgotten cathedral, a quiet spark had begun, one that would grow as their adventure continued. The morning air was crisp as Taro and Myra returned to the cathedral. Yesterday's discoveries had left them both excited and curious, and neither could stop thinking about the mysteries hidden within the ancient walls. As they stepped into the grand hall, sunlight filtered through the broken windows, painting the dust-filled air with streaks of gold. The cathedral seemed alive, whispering stories of a time long past, and both explorers felt a sense of awe and anticipation. Taro led the way toward a smaller, hidden chamber he had noticed the day before. The entrance was partially blocked by fallen stones, but with Myra's help, they carefully moved the rubble aside. The chamber was unlike anything they had seen so far. Its walls were covered in murals, vivid despite centuries of decay. The paintings showed humans and another species, tall, graceful beings with elongated limbs working together in harmony. They built cities, shared knowledge, and celebrated life together. Myra stepped closer, her eyes wide. "These murals, they tell a story of peace and unity. Look at how they interact. This cathedral wasn't just a building. It was a place of learning, cooperation, and hope." Taro nodded, examining the murals. "It's amazing. Somehow, this story survived even though everything else has been forgotten. We're seeing history that no one else has ever touched." They spent hours studying the murals, sketching the symbols, and translating the faded inscriptions. Taro felt a thrill as he realized how much they were uncovering together. Myra's knowledge and insight impressed him more with each moment. At the same time, he noticed the way she moved, graceful, careful, yet confident. Each glance she gave him, each smile, felt like a quiet spark in the silent chamber. As they explored the far corner of the room, Myra leaned over an old wooden table covered with dust and dry parchment. "Be careful," Taro warned. "These materials are fragile. They could crumble if we touch them too hard." Myra nodded but reached for a small scroll. The moment her fingers brushed it, a tiny spark jumped from the lantern Taro had brought the day before. It landed on a pile of dry papers stacked nearby. Within seconds, smoke curled into the air, and a small flame appeared. Taro's heart raced. "Fire!" he shouted, quickly grabbing a heavy cloth and smothering the flame. Myra stepped back, eyes wide with alarm. The fire was gone almost as quickly as it had started, but the smell of smoke lingered. They both sat down on the floor, catching their breath. Myra's hands shook slightly. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see the writing more clearly. Taro reached out and took her hand. It's not your fault. These old buildings are unpredictable. We have to be careful, that's all. His touch was reassuring, and Myra felt her tension ease. The incident, frightening as it had been, had shown them how well they could work together in a crisis. After a few minutes, they continued exploring, more cautious this time. They discovered a hidden alcove behind a tall bookshelf, filled with carved symbols and small artifacts. Myra explained how these objects could have been used for teaching or ceremonies. Taro listened intently, fascinated by every word she said. Their shared excitement brought them closer, and the bond between them grew stronger with each discovery. As the afternoon sun filtered through the broken windows, they sat in the center of the chamber, looking at the murals together. Taro noticed the way Myra's eyes sparkled as she traced the lines of the painting with her fingers. Without thinking, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. She looked at him, startled for a moment, then smiled softly. It was a small gesture, but in that quiet cathedral, it spoke volumes. Thank you for being here with me, Myra said. I don't think I could have understood all of this without you. Taro smiled. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. This place, it's incredible, but discovering it with you makes it even better. The cathedral seemed to hum around them, as if approving of their growing connection. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, and the sunlight began to fade. As they packed up their notes and sketches, both felt a quiet anticipation for the next day. There were more mysteries to uncover, more stories to learn, and perhaps more moments like the one they had just shared, moments that connected them not just to history, but to each other. As they left the chamber, Taro glanced at Myra and realized that the cathedral had already given him something far greater than ancient secrets. It had given him companionship, trust, and the first gentle spark of something that might grow into love. And somewhere in the depths of the forgotten cathedral, the murals seemed to glow a little brighter, as if welcoming their discovery and their bond. The sky had darkened by the time Taro and Myra returned to the cathedral the next day. Clouds rolled across the horizon, thick and heavy, promising a storm. The forest around them swayed with the wind, and the leaves rustled like whispers. Taro felt a thrill of excitement mixed with caution as he and Myra approached the grand doors. The cathedral had always seemed magical to him, but today it felt alive in a new way, as if it was preparing them for a challenge. Looks like we're in for a storm, Myra said, adjusting her backpack. We should be careful. Taro nodded. We'll be fine. This cathedral has survived centuries. A little rain won't stop us. Once inside, the air was cool and still, a sharp contrast to the gusts outside. Sunlight struggled through the broken windows, casting dim light across the dust-covered floors. The wind howled through cracks in the walls, making the cathedral feel alive, almost like a living creature breathing around them. They explored deeper than they had before, following narrow corridors that led to small chambers filled with carvings, faded murals, and broken furniture. Each discovery excited them, and their conversations flowed easily between explanations, questions, and laughter. Taro found himself increasingly aware of Myra's presence. The way she studied the symbols, the way her fingers brushed over carvings with care, made him admire her more than ever. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder shook the walls, and the cathedral trembled slightly. Myra jumped, and Taro reached for her hand instinctively. It's just the storm, he said calmly. We're safe here. They decided to find a central hall where they could wait out the worst of the storm. The hall was vast and echoing, its ceiling high above them, with broken beams letting in streaks of light from the stormy sky. They sat on the floor, leaning against a column, and watched as rain began to beat against the broken windows. Water seeped through cracks in the roof, forming small streams along the stone floor. Myra sighed softly. "I've never seen anything like this. It's beautiful, but also a little scary." Taro smiled. "It's a little like life, isn't it? Unexpected, sometimes dangerous, but still amazing." They spoke for hours, sharing stories about their past adventures, the planets they had visited, and the dreams they held for the future. Myra told Taro about her childhood, growing up fascinated by history and always searching for stories long forgotten. Taro shared his own experiences, the joy he felt when discovering new worlds, and his hope that humans could continue to explore and learn without losing themselves. As the storm raged outside, a quiet closeness settled between them. The cathedral, once cold and lonely, felt warm with their laughter and conversation. Each glance, each touch, seemed to strengthen the invisible bond forming between them. Taro realized that the cathedral had given him not just history and adventure, but also companionship and something more he was only beginning to understand. Eventually, the storm grew stronger, and the wind began to push rain and leaves inside. Taro stood and began moving pieces of broken furniture to block the worst of the drafts. Myra joined him, working alongside him with calm efficiency. Their teamwork was effortless, as if they had done this before. Every shared effort, every glance and word, made the connection between them deeper. At one point, a small piece of debris fell near Myra's foot. Taro caught it quickly, smiling. "Careful," he said gently. Myra laughed softly, a sound that echoed beautifully in the empty hall. "I'm fine," she replied, though her eyes showed gratitude and trust. As night began to fall and the storm finally slowed, the cathedral was quiet again, lit only by the dim light filtering through the windows. Taro and Myra sat together in the center of the hall, tired but content. Neither spoke at first, simply enjoying the calm after the storm and the closeness they felt. Finally, Myra looked at Taro. "Thank you for being here," she said softly. "I don't think I'd feel so safe anywhere else." Taro smiled, his hand brushing hers. "And I'm glad you're here with me. It feels like we belong here, together." For the first time, they allowed themselves a moment to simply feel what had been growing between them: admiration, respect, and a quiet spark of something more. In the heart of the cathedral, surrounded by history and the remnants of a storm, they discovered a new kind of connection, one built not just on discovery, but on trust, courage, and shared experiences. As they finally left the hall to rest for the night, Taro knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and new moments with Myra. And in the depths of the forgotten cathedral, the walls seemed to hold their secret, glowing softly with the warmth of two hearts slowly finding each other. The morning light streamed through the broken windows of the cathedral, giving the stone walls a soft golden glow. Taro and Myra returned with renewed energy, eager to explore the parts of the cathedral they had not yet seen. Yesterday's storm had reminded them how fragile the ancient building was, but it also made them more determined. Each room held secrets, and both of them were eager to uncover as many as they could. As they moved through a narrow corridor, Myra noticed a small, hidden door partially covered by debris. "Taro, look at this," she whispered, excitement in her voice. "I think it leads to another chamber." Taro helped her clear the debris carefully. Behind the door was a small room filled with wooden shelves, broken furniture, and piles of dry parchment. The smell of aged wood and dust filled the air. This room must have been a storage area, Taro said. But look at all these scrolls. There could be more stories hidden here. Myra began examining the scrolls, carefully brushing off the dust. Taro brought the lantern they had found earlier and set it on a stone pedestal. The warm light flickered across the walls, highlighting the intricate carvings and faded murals. Everything felt magical, as if the room itself was waiting for them to bring its stories back to life. While Myra read one of the scrolls aloud, Taro moved a stack of old papers to make more room. Suddenly, the lantern tipped slightly, and a small flame jumped to the edge of the dry parchment. "Fire!" Taro shouted, grabbing a heavy cloth to smother the flames. Myra leaped back, her heart racing. Taro pressed the cloth over the fire, and smoke filled the room. Myra coughed lightly but quickly moved closer to help. Together, they managed to put out the small blaze, leaving behind only a faint smell of smoke and a few slightly singed papers. Both were shaken, but neither panicked. "That was close," Myra said, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't mean to," Taro shook his head and smiled reassuringly. "It's okay. These old buildings are unpredictable. We just have to be more careful." He reached for her hand, and she let him hold it for a moment. The simple touch brought comfort, a quiet reminder that they were facing this adventure together. After a short rest, they continued exploring, now even more cautious. They discovered a hidden alcove filled with small artifacts, carved stones, broken tools, and what appeared to be ceremonial objects. Myra carefully examined each piece, explaining how they might have been used in teaching or rituals. Taro listened with admiration, impressed by her knowledge and patience. Hours passed as they explored, and the cathedral seemed to come alive with their presence. Every corner held a story, every artifact sparked curiosity, and every glance they shared strengthened their bond. Taro found himself noticing the little things about Myra, the way she brushed hair from her face, the way her eyes lit up when she discovered something new. Myra, too, felt a warmth in Taro's presence, an unspoken connection that made the cathedral feel less empty, less forgotten. As the sun began to dip low, they paused in the center of the chamber, looking at the walls covered in carvings. "This place is incredible," Myra said softly. "It's like a bridge between the past and now." Taro nodded, his eyes meeting hers. "And discovering it with you makes it even better. I never thought I'd find someone who understands this place the way you do." For a long moment, they sat quietly, letting the silence speak. The cathedral, once silent and lonely, now seemed warm and alive, filled with the echoes of history and the presence of two people who had grown close through adventure, courage, and shared discovery. Finally, Taro stood and extended a hand to Myra. "We should head back before it gets dark. But tomorrow, we can explore even more, carefully." Myra took his hand and smiled. "Yes. There's still so much to see, and I want to see it all with you." As they walked back through the forest, the cathedral loomed behind them, majestic and silent. The memory of the small fire lingered, a reminder of how fragile and precious their discoveries were. But Taro and Myra also carried with them a stronger bond, built not just on shared curiosity, but on trust, teamwork, and a growing connection neither of them could ignore. That night, as Taro gazed at the stars above, he thought of the cathedral and Myra. He realized that this adventure had given him more than stories and artifacts. It had given him a sense of belonging and the first true spark of love. Myra, too, lay under the same stars, thinking of Taro and the cathedral, and she knew that together they had found something rare and beautiful, a bond that would grow stronger with every discovery. The next morning, Taro and Myra returned to the cathedral with a quiet excitement. The storm from a few days ago had passed, leaving the air fresh and the forest around the cathedral sparkling with dew. Taro carried the lantern carefully, and Myra had her sketchbook ready. Both of them knew that today might bring more discoveries, and maybe, a deeper understanding of each other. As they entered the cathedral, the sunlight streamed through the broken windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in the warm light. The grand hall felt alive, calm, and welcoming. Taro and Myra moved together, exploring corridors they had not yet entered. Every step revealed carvings, murals, and small artifacts that hinted at the lives of the people who had once filled this place with knowledge and hope. In one of the side chambers, they found a small altar, worn but still elegant. Around it were carvings of people holding hands, working together, and celebrating. Myra knelt to examine the symbols. This altar, it feels like it was a place where people promised to help each other, she said softly. It's more than decoration. It's a story, a message from the past. Taro watched her closely, noticing the gentle way she traced the carvings with her fingers. It's amazing how much history can survive, he said. And how it can still touch us, even after so many years. Myra looked up, her eyes meeting his. For a moment, neither spoke. There was a quiet connection in the air, an understanding that went beyond words. Taro realized he had grown more aware of Myra, not just as a companion in exploration, but as someone who inspired him and made his heart feel lighter. Myra, too, felt a warmth in Taro's presence, a comfort she hadn't expected to find in such a lonely place. They continued exploring together, carefully stepping over broken stones and piles of old wood. In a hidden corner, they discovered a mural that told a story of celebration, showing people singing, dancing, and sharing knowledge. Myra's eyes lit up. Look at this, Taro. It's like they wanted to remind everyone that happiness and learning go hand in hand. Taro nodded, smiling. And we're bringing it back to life, piece by piece. As they examined the mural, Myra accidentally brushed against a stack of dry papers, and a small spark from the lantern ignited a tiny flame. This time, they were ready. Taro quickly grabbed a heavy cloth, and together, they smothered the fire. The papers were lightly singed, but nothing important was lost. Myra let out a relieved laugh. We really need to be more careful. But I'm glad we handled it together. Taro smiled, his hand brushing hers as he helped her steady the papers. That touch, brief but meaningful, made both of their hearts beat faster. The cathedral, silent and ancient, seemed to hold its breath with them, as if sharing in the quiet intimacy of the moment. They spent the afternoon in the main hall, sitting near a fallen pillar and looking at the carvings on the walls. Myra shared her thoughts about the symbols, Taro shared his ideas about the building's architecture, and together, they pieced together a small story of a civilization that valued unity and knowledge. With every conversation, every shared discovery, their bond grew stronger. As the sun began to set, painting the cathedral in soft orange and gold, Taro turned to Myra. I've never felt this way before, he admitted softly. Being here, exploring with you, it feels like I've found more than history. I've found someone I want to be with. Myra's eyes widened slightly, then softened. She reached out, placing her hand over his. I feel the same, Taro, she said quietly. I didn't expect to feel this way, but I'm glad I do. Being here with you, it feels right. The two sat together in silence, letting the cathedral hold their words and their feelings. The ruins, once cold and lonely, now felt warm and alive with their shared presence. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, and the last light of the sun cast long shadows across the stone floor. For the first time, Taro and Myra allowed themselves to fully acknowledge the connection that had been growing between them. It was built on trust, courage, shared adventures, and the quiet moments that had made them feel closer with each passing day. As night fell, they stood and carefully walked toward the cathedral doors, carrying their notes, sketches, and artifacts. The cathedral loomed behind them, magnificent and silent, holding its secrets and stories. But Taro and Myra knew that they had discovered something new, not just history, but a bond that would guide them through whatever adventures awaited next. Under the stars, walking back through the forest, their hands brushed again, and this time, neither let go. The cathedral had given them history, knowledge, and adventure, but it had also given them each other, a connection that would grow stronger with every new discovery. The morning sun shone brightly as Taro and Myra returned to the cathedral one last time. The forest around them was calm, and the air smelled of earth and dew. Today, they had a new mission, not just to explore, but to preserve what they had discovered. The cathedral, though ancient and fragile, held stories of courage, unity, and knowledge that deserved to survive for future generations. Taro carried tools to secure weak beams and loose stones, while Myra brought her sketches and notes, planning how to document everything carefully. Together, they entered the grand hall, the familiar sight of the tall columns and broken windows greeting them like old friends. The cathedral felt alive with their presence, and the golden sunlight streaming through cracks made the dust float like tiny stars in the air. They worked side by side, carefully repairing parts of the structure where it had weakened over the centuries. Taro lifted fallen beams into place while Myra marked the walls and catalogued carvings and murals. Every movement, every glance, showed their trust and growing closeness. They laughed at small accidents, dust falling in their hair, tools slipping from their hands, and the sound of their voices echoed through the vast space, giving it warmth and life. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows, they paused near a large mural that had become their favorite. It depicted humans and the other species working together, building cities, sharing knowledge, and celebrating life. Myra traced the carvings with her fingers. "It feels like they're still alive here," she whispered. "Their story continues through us." Taro watched her, his heart swelling with admiration and love. "And we'll make sure it survives," he said softly. "Not just for us, but for everyone who comes after. This cathedral deserves to be remembered." For a moment, they sat together in silence, letting the enormity of their task sink in. Then, Myra smiled, her eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting sun. "I never thought exploring ruins could feel like this," she said. "It's more than adventure. It's hope." Taro nodded, reaching for her hand. "And I never thought I could find someone who makes exploring even better. Being here with you, it feels right." Myra squeezed his hand gently, her smile growing warmer. "I feel the same, Taro. This cathedral brought us together, and I think it will guide us in the future too." As the day passed, they carefully completed their preservation work. They documented murals, repaired weak structures, and cleared safe paths for future visitors. The cathedral, once forgotten and silent, now felt alive with their efforts. Every repaired beam, every catalogued carving, was a promise that history and knowledge would not be lost. By evening, the cathedral stood more stable than it had in centuries. Taro and Myra stepped back, breathing deeply and looking around at their work. The sunlight streaming through the broken windows made the dust sparkle like tiny stars, and for the first time, the cathedral felt complete, not because it was perfect, but because it was remembered, cared for, and filled with the warmth of human presence. Taro turned to Myra. "We did it? Together?" Myra smiled, her hand finding his again. "Yes. Together. And I wouldn't have done it with anyone else." They walked to the edge of the cathedral, looking out at the forest beyond. The trees swayed gently, the wind carrying the scent of earth and life. The cathedral stood tall, a symbol of perseverance, history, and hope. Taro and Myra knew that what they had built together both here and between themselves was even stronger than the ancient stones around them. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, they sat on a low stone ledge outside the cathedral. Taro took Myra's hand in both of his. "No matter what adventures come next, I want you by my side," he said. Myra leaned closer, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. "And I'll be here, Taro. Together, we can face anything. The cathedral has shown us that." For a long while, they sat quietly, watching the sky and feeling the bond that had grown stronger with every challenge and discovery. The cathedral, once forgotten, now held not only the stories of the past but also the story of two humans who found courage, love, and hope within its walls. Finally, they stood, hand in hand, ready to leave the forest and the cathedral for a while. But they knew they would return, bringing more knowledge, care, and perhaps other explorers to share in the wonder they had uncovered. More importantly, they knew they had found something rare, a connection that would guide them through life's adventures, just as the cathedral had guided them through history. The forgotten cathedral, now alive with history and memory, stood as a testament to the power of human courage, love, and perseverance. Taro and Myra walked forward together, hearts full, ready for the future, and confident that no matter what challenges awaited, they could face them as one.